Distress is evidence of something wrong internally. So let's look a little bit at spiritual, psychological, inner geography. If you feel bad, you feel bad. That's what's going on inside of you. Why do you feel bad about anything at all? Why are you concerned? Why are you angrily fighting and trying to change things the way you personally demand they should be? Why do you do that? Because you're living in a place where you shouldn't live, where you don't have to live. You're living in the valley of despair of your own thoughts and moods and reactions and preferences. You're living in the dark, animalistic jungle, and then you wonder why you feel bad. You always must feel bad when you live only with your acquired negative nature. Time to pack up and move. When you do that, even a little bit, you gain just 10 yards of elevation out of the valley of despair. You will feel different already. You really will. And that's the evidence that you're doing something right, that you're no longer lying down and just surrendering to gloom, surrendering to self-sleep. All the people you hang around with, run around with, and associate out with in the world, your employment, your friends, they all want to stay asleep. And here's why, and this will help you to wake up. By staying asleep in the middle of the ruins and the fierce animals down in that dark valley, by staying asleep, they believe they can block out the fears of the animals. But you can't. If you're surrounded by animals, there's always something in you that knows it, and your sleep will be disturbed. You won't be able to sleep very soundly, believe me. All spiritual sleepers toss in their sleep and strike out. Got the idea? Don't you strike out all the time? You're staggering around inside yourself. The only way to get rid of the fears of the dark valley and the shadows down there and the surrounding prowling animals, the only way to get rid of it is to wake up and dare to face them. Isn't that one of the most peculiar characteristics of sick human nature that you've ever heard? That a person thinks that by ignoring the monsters that they'll go away. To the contrary, it is the ignoring of them, being asleep, which keeps them there. People have got it exactly backward. And also, to make it even worse, they won't come to a place where their horrible error, blunder, could be explained to them so that they could change things. When you face an actual animal, you're caught in the woods or something, you might be physically scared of them, and that's okay, because that'll maybe save your life from a vicious animal or a bear or whatever. But you carry that over wrongly into your inner woods and jungles, and you think and are quite sure that monster, that ghost, is going to be too much for you. And so that's what makes you want to run away, which is the same thing as going to sleep. You think that you can lower the pain a little bit, and then you think that that's the best you can do. No. The best you can do is to altogether get rid of the nightmare that you will surely have if you stay asleep like you are now. Speaking of geography, this room is the place of perfect good cheer and encouragement and happy and buoyancy. This is where you can learn to walk lighthearted through every event of your day, which you can't do now, can you? Look, I said that to be troubled, to be heavy-spirited, is perfect evidence, and I want you to see the evidence, that there's something wrong inside. You're living where you don't have to live, in the rooms of one room of your thoughts, another of your moods, and so on. You can move out anytime you choose to move out, because the directions for doing so are here. They're available. How about that for a great thought? All the strength, wisdom, map necessary for you to wake up and move outside of yourself are available to you. Why did you wait till this moment of your life to try to get that map? What have you been doing with yourself? I described what you've been doing with yourself. The false pleasure of feeling bad. The destructive pleasure of feeling fearful. And let me add another one. The destructive pleasure of being hostile, of arguing, of having a malice. You can even keep it off your face a lot, can't you? Anyone who really understands, you could see through it. But you've got your exterior show pretty good, haven't you? You know the malice is there because you are suffering from it. It's a part of your state of sleep. If a burglar goes into a shop at night, sneaks in, the moment he gets out of his car to walk around to the alley in back of the shop where he sees a way he thinks he can get in and start stealing things, the moment he enters that alley and starts to get into the shop, break into it, he starts to feel nervous, right? He's nervous because he's in the wrong place internally and in the wrong place externally. You have no business being in a dark alley about to break into a shop at midnight. That's just the beginning. Get the parallel. I'm talking in parables now, so get the parable of what I'm talking about. Being in the wrong place inside yourself. He has to be nervous. The burglar, the thief, has to be jittery. Oh, and listen to this. Oh, is he terrified that he might set off a hidden alarm? You know, electronics are pretty smart these days, aren't they? They know how to put light beams and things in the floor that you might not notice, or if you touch it accidentally, it's going to set off an alarm. And it might even set off a secret alarm that'll go off maybe in the police headquarters, and the burglar won't know about it until he gets caught. Do you see why it's a marvelous thing for you to realize that it is stupid to be bad, to be a thief? Whether it's stealing a physical object, someone else's money, or stealing their life, draining their life, draining their energy. You don't think of that as criminal acts. They are. They're acts against you. You don't have to steal another person's energy. You don't have to impress them with how wise you are. You can have your own full flow of energy as much as you want and more. Oh, that's a good little extra thought too. You want energy, you want intelligence, it can overflow for you so much you won't be able to handle it. I'm telling you, that's the way it will be. If you stop being an inner thief, stop being a psychological criminal. If you'll say, I'm not going to use another human being, I'm not going to be deceitful toward them, I'm not going to try to get something from them. But look, here's the problem. I said you shouldn't do that, but you don't know you're doing that. And you have to know you're doing that. And you can start with a simple fact that you're distressed and nervous. You're inside the shop and you shouldn't be there. So back to our physical criminal again. He's inside there, stealing things, taking things that he shouldn't take. Now he has broken the law. The laws on the book said it's a criminal act to break in and steal someone else's property. Shouldn't do that. You're breaking the law. You better become aware of how you're breaking spiritual laws every day, every minute, all unseen by you, which is the reason you're nervous. You're afraid you're going to get caught, and you will. And you are. The very nervousness is getting caught. The faintest thought, the smallest motive to get something, anything, from another human being at their expense, the faintest thought, is the punishment itself. How about the shame of it? How about the guilt of it? And long after the criminal deed has been committed, the shame goes with you. And you increasingly hate living with yourself. You wouldn't live with a thief in a home, would you? If you know he's a thief, you'd afraid he might turn against you sometime. A charlatan, a deceiver, you won't want to live in the same house with someone. Oh, you are stuck presently in living with yourself. And you don't like that at all, do you? No, you don't like that. You're terrified at what you're going to do next against yourself, and I want you to become conscious of that. I want you to simply know how you fear yourself living in that awful place inside you. Know that you are the whole bundle of despair. You are everything wrong with you. Now we've got the source where we have to work. Let's take a look at this burglar again. He's been doing it for a long time. And he gets excited over stealing those coins or the money or furs or whatever he gets inside the house. And he goes down and goes to the fence and gets 20% of their value maybe, because the fence has taken his too. He's got that money, and he walks away, and he's counting the $200 he got from this one night's work. He's counting it, and he feels great. And he says to himself, I pay my rent for another week or whatever it is, and have enough food and so on. He feels great. All the time, he is sick with fear. Let me tell you what he's sick with fear over. That he has to do it again. Because that's how he gets money to live with in this physical world. He steals from other people. And he knows that sooner or later he's going to get caught by the external authorities, and that you don't have to wait for that. I just explained to you how we're caught every minute. Any wrong thought at all is instant punishment. By the way, if you knew the secret of instant change, you could bring that into play and cancel out your love for instant criminality, and it would finally fade away. You really can allow a spiritual power to come in to cancel out the criminal acts and the tendencies toward them. But anyway, how can that criminal ever be free, happy, content, at ease as long as he's a criminal? He can't. Human beings are spiritual inner criminals. That's why they're miserable. They're always afraid of going to jail, always afraid of getting caught, and you will get caught. You are caught at the moment you commit the crime, or the moment you even consider it. The minute a little sly scheme jumps into your mind to hurt someone else. Let's generalize. Who have you hurt in the last 24 hours? The trouble, I asked you a question, who have you hurt in the last 24 hours? And the problem is you have the slightest notion. Me hurt someone else? No. Other people hurt me, but I don't hurt someone else. how come these so clear, obvious, good lessons never penetrate you? I have told you, for example, the very way your manner, your demeanor, the way you talk, facial expressions, what you do, that is your nature, and that is what you give to everyone. Your 8-year-old son, 15-year-old daughter, husband, wife, boss, someone who works for you. You walk around hurting everyone by being what you now are, and you get hostile without seeing it when told that, because you don't want to see it. It couldn't be that bad. That bad. It's 1,000 times worse than you think. You're asleep in the dark valley, surrounded by vicious bears and cougars and lions and weasels, surrounded by, and you think there's just 10 out there, and you think, well, if I can get by the 10, I'll get out of here and I won't be threatened by them anymore. There's not 10, there's 10,000, and not only that, but criminality, criminal thoughts, criminal intentions breed prolifically. They are all reproducing themselves, and that's your difficulty. You don't know how to stop. You don't know how to stop them from breeding inside yourself, which they do, and then they take you over. And then you say, well, I have a little fault. Little faults. No, you don't even have 10,000 faults. You have just one, which is your entire nature. Yeah. Look how the physical body, this is just one area. Look how the physical body itself is wrecked and ravaged and ruined by the way you think. I mentioned distress, I mentioned nervousness, your health. All wrongness points itself toward other parts of your system. For example, toward your health, toward your body, toward the way you talk and express yourself, and wrecks it too. Let's take a look at our burglar again, and he says one time, he begins to come to himself a little bit. And he comes to a class. There he reads the book. He's back in Akron, Ohio or somewhere. And he reads one of the book. And he comes across one point which he is able to begin to comprehend. And that point is, lifelessness is not life. To feel, I'm going to say the same point in several ways, to feel an exhilaration over the power to hurt someone else, that is not life, that is lifelessness. Furthermore, when you are able to hurt someone else, which you do all the time not doing it, you call that an affirmation of yourself. You say that, oh, that feels good. I scored a point on that person. Very often I'm caught being wrong, but this time I was right. No, you're not right. You're wrong, but you happen to find someone else who was able to crumble before you did, and he cried or ran away or whatever, and you felt as if you're someone after all. The insanity of it is really, I tell you, it is really beyond words to describe. You have to see it for yourself. Take what I just said. A person who feels great because he has caused grief to someone else. I'll ask you, what would you think of a human being who gets pleasure out of causing trouble for anyone else in any way he can? And I want you to notice how this is the way of the world. Well, look, you were brought up in that home since you were born in this world. What was your home like? I have been describing it now for 20 minutes, haven't I? Remember the little sniping shots your father made at your mother? And she came back with the same. You and your brothers or sisters, or you and your parents. That's just in the home itself. Everyone living in the wrong place. Maybe your home physically was okay, but everyone was living in the wrong place internally. And they had no ability to do anything but try to find what they call life. And because they didn't understand life or themselves, they found the opposite of life. And they started at a very early age. Everyone in everyone's home started at a very early age to allow the possibility of real life to start to drain away. That burglar, when he snuck out of the shop with his bag of loot, as he walked down the street and got into his car, and he got away with it as far as the police are concerned this time. He won't later. But he didn't get caught this time. As he walked away, he was in an ambivalent state, a double state. I struck back at a world that has been stealing from me. And I have a right to do that. They did it to me, I get to do it to them. All lies, of course, all justification. And he feels good, which is really feeling bad. But he also feels bad in another way, which is that it is happening to him, but he can't observe it, and he certainly can't explain it, and he certainly can't stop it. And what he feels, and you're to become conscious of what I'm going to tell you now, he feels his life draining away, which it is actually doing. To live wrong, to steal, always means a drainage of your life. Break it down. Drainage of your physical energy. Drainage of the spirit. This idea I just gave to you is so deep, so unconscious, that it's a very rare human being who ever understands it. Because it takes a lot of daring for you to get to it. And when you get to it, that will begin to end it. The reason it doesn't end is because human beings stick only to the false exhilaration of saying, I won the argument. That means you stole something from someone else by imposing your neurosis on them. I won the argument. Just as the burglar said, I got the money out of that shop. I'm a winner. And again, and don't you forget what I'm going to repeat. What they did to me, I have a right to do back to them for what they did. This is the wail, the cry, the sob of a sick man. Only an extremely sick, vicious, malicious mind would ever think of revenge in the smallest way. The smallest way. Billions of human beings, whole life is revolved around revenge. Never using that word, of course. Never saying, I'm going to strike back for how they treated me. Never, of course, seeing the real reason for it. The real reason a human being takes insane revenge is because he's insane. And that's it. There's no other explanation needed. Because he's gone from reality, he's allied himself to wrongness. Well, we're making progress here this morning, and here is how. I'll give you a little test. How many painful, haunted thoughts would you say you think during just one day of 24 hours. How many? Pretty countless? Tens of so many, there's no way to count them. All you know is that they're endless. All right, now deliberately think of all of these. Maybe you could pull a specific one out. What are you worried? What's your pet worry for today so far? Got it? Yes, something's nagging at you, and there's the main one, the major bully thought. Then there's on down the list, on down to where some you can't even see. But they're all nagging at you. That one and all the tens of thousands underneath it, first of all, we call them thoughts and feelings, all mixed up with each other. When you were on your way to real life, when you don't want to steal anymore, you don't want to hurt anyone anymore. Maybe you can't even do it. Maybe you can't succeed, but your intention is not to hurt anyone. Oh, that's marvelous. Even if you can't do it, your intention is right, because one day something will be able to do it for you. But you don't know that yet. You still think you can do it. On your way toward abandoning mental criminal activities, abandoning living in the wrong place itself, inside yourself, it will become quite clear to you that you actually don't have to think at all in the way you now do. Here's why. Where there is understanding, there is no need for thinking. That's it. Understanding abolishes thinking. Unnecessary thinking. You have to think about how to drive your car, of course, things like that, which is the right use of memory. But how about what's been torturing you? I have set up something that I want to succeed. I have set up the way I want to appear to everyone I meet. That's two aims, right? Now I have to figure out how to do it. I want to succeed in that new career I have for myself. I want to succeed in attracting someone. Why do you want to attract them at all? What's going to happen after 2 days? You're going to just start trading troubles with each other. You don't think about that. Because thieves don't think about that. Thieves only think of what they can get. You don't realize that other person is going to steal from you too. Everyone's a thief. Ooh, I can see why a lot of people don't come back. Which is wrong, which means they can't take it. I said, this is the cheery way, the only bright path there is. Because the understanding that you need not think about criminal thoughts, you need not scheme, the understanding of that will cause wrongness to fade away. You'll be drained in an entirely different way. You'll be drained of what was draining you. You have to work while I'm talking. If you don't, you'll lose the lessons. You won't get the reason for you being here. Think of some muddled, muddy, unclear thing that you are now doing. And everyone will be the same in some ways, but different in others. Where do you have a problem? You want to establish the business, you want to impress someone. I assure you that the problem is there because you think that you have to think about it, because you want the idea of this particular success more than you want God. Now, we know we have to go out in this world and we have to make a living somewhere. But you don't have to be most popular man in the block. You don't have to be the most attractive woman down at the office. That's what I'm trying to see. I have to get a fine line, because you do have to live in this world and you do have to earn money. Look, I'll put it to you simply. With money, a very close thing in this world, isn't it? You go out and earn money any way that's honest, legitimate, it's clean. There are lots of ways to earn money that way. And it doesn't make any difference how much you make. It's good to be able to pay your bills and things like that. It doesn't make how much you concern yourself with how much you make, because in the first place, you usually make enough to pay your bill. If not, then you could think correctly toward that. But look, you've got a place to live, you've got food, you've got a source of money. Now, God says that you don't have to add anything to that at all. You say you do, and you're wrong. I know you're not getting it. I said you live the simple, ordinary life. No, look, you should be so free that you know that nobody else in the whole world cares whether you exist or not. And it doesn't make a hoot of difference to you. What are you doing to make people aware that you're around? Little kids know how to do it, don't they? They scream, and they demand, and they holler, and they pout. Well, what do you know? You know what I'm going to say, don't you? There's not much difference, is there, between the 5-year-old child physically and the 5-year-old child who is 40 years old. All the same, little pout. Except that a small child, he just blurts it out. He doesn't care what anyone thinks over what he says. But we are far more subtle when we grow up, are we not? It takes a lot more sincerity than you now have. Now, I'll tell you a little story. Once upon a time, there was a king, a good king. And he ruled over all the elements of his empire. And there were schools for learning practical trades, how to build homes and how to predict the weather, anything for practical use, schools all over the land. And the good king, sitting on his throne one day and looking over the notes and reports that came in from all over the kingdom, he noticed that one school was producing extraordinary results. That is, all the graduates of this particular practical school were learning their lessons faster, and when they came out, they were far more skilled and qualified to do their work out in the world, whatever it might be. And he was astounded that year after year, this special school was turning out better students. 50% above average of all the rest of the schools in the land. Wow, he said, if I can find out the secret of what's going on at that school, and we can apply it to all the other ones, and we'll uplift the life of everyone, physical life. Oh yes, this school also included truth principles. So he took a trip and went down the school and walked around, looked at the classrooms and talked to some of the teachers, talked to the principal. And for the first 20 minutes there, I didn't see anything different. Everything's just ordinary. And then he happened to be in a certain place where there's a very prominent sign. And he looked at it and he did a double take. He looked away and he come back there. And he smiled to himself, and he knew the reason why those students who graduated were far superior to the others. The sign said, if you can't get the help you want, check your sincerity. If you can't find the help you want, check your sincerity. Oh, he had that put up all over. All the other schools, and the grades and the skills went up immediately. Now, how long's it been, by the way, since you've checked your sincerity? And what does the word mean? Everybody thinks they're sincere, just as everyone thinks that they're kindly and loving and really an awful nice person to be around, pleasant, helpful, bubbly little bit of sunshine, right? How many bubbly bits of sunshine in the room? And every day the bubble bursts. Sincerity means this. You want to bring your nature into harmony with true nature. You want, I'll say this in several different ways, the same thing. You want your thoughts to be spiritual thoughts only. Sincerity means that you have an intention to start walking the path. Now this explanation will help you, because I know what happens as you walk the path. As you walk this spiritual path, you fall off it, right? You say, I'm going to be nice all day, and instead you're bad all day. I'm not going to think a single self-pitying thought all day, and you think 20 of them all day long. That need not bother your sincerity. Remember, it's the basic intention that counts. Sincerity means that you say, I am going to harmonize who I am with who God is. I'm going to try to let my nature be the same as truthful nature. Now that's the intention. And you know already how many times you fail. So you fall off and you blow up. You spill the food on the floor and you explode, and you're glad that there's no other students around watching you explode. Little smiles out there here and there. You're glad no one catches you falling off the road. All right. No problem at all. Not really. As long as you know that you fell off the road, that you exploded, that you allowed yourself to be carried away from your intention, that you allowed force of habit, impulsiveness, a love for the familiar but bad, and so on. As long as you recognize that you fell asleep for the moment. And when you fell asleep, the angry, hostile, evil animals were allowed to attack you. And you made that negative exclamation and got away from your aim. You got away for a little bit. Come back. There I go. There I go again. It'll be very helpful to you. As long as you don't add self-condemnation to it. Well, as long as you don't hate yourself and saying, oh, I'm a hypocrite. Yesterday I said I'm going to be good from now on, and I was bad 10 times in one day. I must be a hypocrite. You must not do that. Because now you're giving yourself the identity of a hypocrite. Then you want to live up to that, because that's all you've got is the identity of being a hypocrite. You're not bad. You're not good, that is. So to be bad is at least an alternative. At least you're existing. You're still around. If the whole world can't point at you and say there's a good man, they can point and say there's a big hypocrite. Ha-ha, I'm the center of attention. None of that. You drop the stuff on the floor, you get a broom, you clean it up, and you go back. You go back and you say to God Almighty, I did it again. That's because I'm asleep. I know I'm forgiven. Oh, I wish this was the start of the talk so I could go on into that topic. But you know you're forgiven. You know absolutely that your intention is right. You know it's been a long time to get to this point, but you've got there. You know what you want more than the jungle inside. You know you want to transport yourself from the wrong place inside to the right place. You know that. And you will always come back to it. I tell you, you will. Isn't that beautiful? That's beautiful for you, and that's bad news for the old nature. So you drop the food, so you think a bad thought. You're at the place where you can catch it, where you're conscious of it, it's happening, and you do one of the most marvelous things a human being could ever do, and I want you to do it. You start life all over again. I tell you, listen to me. You are not condemned. You are not tied to that awful bad thought that you thought just 5 minutes ago, that you thought 40 years ago, or that deed. Now you've got to the point where those things you did in the past may have been foolish, but they're not fatal. They may have been foolish, but they're not fatal, because you have made the decision to always come back to where God Himself can help you. You know you can't help yourself. You're too much for you. You know that? If you don't know it, I'm telling you. And that's the way it always is. You are too much for you. Something else has to enter into it. And I've been telling you about it for quite a while now. So to have no confidence in your present nature the way it is a good thing. That is losing a false thought about yourself, that you can do things right, or that you can change yourself. The object is not to change your old nature, but to get rid of it altogether. Get rid of it so that it's not the dominating influence in your life, and step by step, you will find, even in physical things, you won't make the physical mistakes quite so much anymore, because something is speaking through your mind, which operates in physical events and in your emotions too, and it's telling you, pick up that knife very carefully. You're washing dishes, be careful of that sharp knife. You'll be aware of it, because you're not wasting your life thinking the 10,000 foolish and unnecessary thought as to how someone hurts your feelings by saying something. Do you see how accidents reduce themselves? And that's just on the physical level. No more psychological accidents, because God is perfect. God never makes accidents. Want your nature to be that nature of the higher world up there. Want your nature to match it, and you will be drawn up to where the high is, and that's where you'll live all the time. Good morning. This talk is entitled How to Safely Drive Life's Highway. Those of you who have driven from here to Los Angeles will see a certain sign along the way, and I want you to watch for it. Those of you who are returning to Southern California, all the way, this is a good extra little lesson for you. All along the way, watch at a certain point, and I'm not going to tell you precisely where it is so that you'll stay alert all the time. There's a sign on the right, of course, as you go down, that says, watch downhill speed. Maybe you've got a good memory and can see it in your mind already. Watch downhill speed, and it's a long, long slope. You've climbed from the other side up, and then you start to go down. Why is that sign there? Because it's necessary for careless, talkative motorists. Because it goes on so long, and people are so inattentive to what they're doing at the moment that they don't notice that gradually the speedometer needle goes up and up and up. It gets too high, you lose control of the car, and there are a turn or two down toward the end of the slope. And probably enough people have crashed on that road that over a period of time the highway patrol had the sign put up, watch downhill speed. There's the first lesson of the morning. We are going so fast inwardly. And we don't remember the warning signs we've been given all throughout our days. We don't remember the warning signs, watch downhill speed. Now what does that mean? It means to notice that the tempo, the inner speed, is going so fast through what? Through irritation, hostility, desire to get something. The inner speed builds up and up and up to the point where an accident must happen. And that means that it happened because you're not in control of your mind, emotions, body anymore. And you notice this too when you're driving the highway of your general life, that your attention is not on what you're doing at the moment you're doing it. Something has come in and offered you a bribe. And it says something like this: get excited over that prospect ahead of you. Get gloomy over the memory of a past dumb mistake. Something has tempted you to take your eyes off of the road, and you obeyed, and then you had the crash. Big ones and little ones. The lesson we want in the early part of this talk is to constantly bring our inner eyes back to the road, to look and see what's happening around us and inside us, to prevent the marauders and the sneaks from coming and taking over our minds so that we become unconscious of where we are. I gave the brief example on this long slope in California, which you're going to watch for when you go back or anytime you go to Southern California. I gave the example of someone simply chattering with someone next to them in the car, or thinking your own thoughts if you're all alone, so that is what becomes important to you because it gives you a false reward, gives you a little something to do with yourself, which you don't have to really do at all. You don't have to be thinking those vagrant thoughts. What you should be doing doing is enjoying the pure pleasure of being awake. This is while you're driving your automobile and you're watching for the traffic with your physical eyes and watching for dangers with them. At the same time, you're enjoying the alertness of what you're doing. You've got a wrong idea of what pleasure is. Your idea of pleasure is repetition of memory, and it's not pleasurable at all, is it? It's painful. Even if you won the medal, even if you got praised by the 6th grade teacher, where is it now? See, now you're hungry for more. I got it then. Where is it now? The world has failed me. It hasn't kept its promise. You just kidded yourself all along thinking that that was pleasurable when it wasn't, and that is why we get wrecked alongside the highway of life. You think out for yourself what I've just explained in the first few minutes, and you will see the cause of all inner accident as well as outer ones. Now we'll talk about bumps along the highway. You've driven a bumpy road, and life consists of a series of small bumps with an occasional Lollapalooza, right? Oh, what was the Lollapalooza that made you cautious for the next, 15 minutes, and then you fell asleep again, and another Lollapalooza? What are the bumps? The inner bumps, which happen endlessly because we don't know enough to get off the bumpy road. The purpose of you knowing that you're on a bumpy road is to know that you're on a bumpy road. Pure logic, right? The bumps that you experience throughout the day, there's one thing. It's a sudden, unexpected revelation about yourself that you had rather preferred not be revealed. It is a sudden reminder, a sudden realization of a disgrace, defeat, that causes you to feel unpleasant. You don't like to feel unpleasant. You'd rather feel another kind of false pleasantness of thinking of winning first prize in the 6th grade. But the bumps, and this should be established firmly in your mind right now, that all bumps along the road shake you aside and shake you inside are simply something that has reminded you of what you don't want to be reminded of. And if you're a spiritual student, you'll go far more than just be reminded of it. You will see it so clearly, so eagerly, that you'll want to go beyond the false pleasure of being bumped and the displeasure in it too. You'll want to go far beyond the first reaction to where your understanding of why you get jolted is so clear that the road itself smooths itself little by little as you go along. Now it's pretty bumpy, isn't it? That's because you don't want to feel the unpleasantness of what has been revealed to you. And I'm going to go into a little more about enduring unpleasantness in a little bit, but for now, why are we talking about something that most people would say would be negative because they don't want to face the facts about themselves? Because it's the only cure. The more bumps, jolts, shakings you can take with a determination to learn from them, the more you can take, the faster you will smooth out the highway in front of you. But always the surprise, and I know that you're going to react to this, always the surprise of going along for a couple miles without a jolt, without a bump, and thinking that now you've got it made. Now you understand. Oh, that man said that if I studied, I would understand. What do you know? In just 24 hours, I got the whole lesson and my life is smooth. And then you fall asleep at the wheel, huh? Someone took you. You took yourself, of course. All deception being self-deception. Never assume anything. Only investigate to find out why it happened. And the answer is so simple. Why any unpleasantness, any jolt happens is because you, we were chattering along the road when we should have kept our eyes open inwardly, our inward eyes open to notice the bump so that we could have avoided it. And that means to avoid the bump when you see it simply means that you are not going to go into beloved memory in which you like to be jolted. To condemn yourself, to think of yourself as a horrible, guilty sinner is to love the bumps. And that will keep you on the road. Why would anyone do that? And I told you why. Any feeling, any kind of an ordinary emotional feeling, you say is better than not existing. But you don't know that you're not existing when you have the bumps that you prefer. You call non-existence existence, and from now on, you are not going to love your shames anymore. No more feeling bad over the dumb things you did. Now you feel bad, don't you? Why do you feel bad? Because it's you. You think you found a guaranteed way to preserve your life. You have not found a way to preserve your life. You have not found life at all. You've only found the continual bumps and jolts, which you say, see, that's evidence that I exist. Here I am, feeling bad. And if there's a bad feeling there must be a possessor of those bad feelings. There isn't. There is only the bumps. It is only you identifying with saying, that is me, and now you'll say, therefore I have to do something about it, and what you do will only put you on another detour where the bumps get heavier and harder, and you jolt yourself more, and you'll fall in love with that, and you'll go on to a rougher road, until the fatal crack up. Now don't be shocked at that statement. You see the trouble. Here's the trouble. Everyone around you is cracking up fatally. Unless they love God, unless they want to really smooth out their life, they are cracking up all the time. All right, you're part of the work in this morning's talk. Last year, I'll give you a whole year to think about it. Who do you know who cracked up? What happened to them? They went to the final stages of alcoholism. These are the easy ones to see, the exterior crack-ups. The bumps got worse and worse because they didn't come here and learn about them as you've been learning. The alcoholism or the dope, the inner ones are harder to see, but you as spiritual students should be able to detect them at the first glance of anyone, the first person you meet and the 1,000th person you meet after you leave this class. Look at their faces and it will tell you exactly where they're going, which is to one day, the final crack up. What does that mean? Well, this is pretty serious business. It means the final crack up means to leave this life without life. See, I say words like that, and the significance of it escapes you. Because you'd rather not think about it because you think I might be talking about you. Let me talk about you. Very intensely personal. Let me talk to no one but you. So that when I mention the fact that most people are going off into nothingness, they're going from this physical life into nothingness. When I say that, you'll say, well, you know, that makes sense. This talking about the bumps along the highway and getting shaken up and not learning from it, but going, I'm doing the same thing again. That makes sense because it's happened to me. He is talking about me. Then when the stronger statement comes along, majority of people are just going out of this life without life. Oh, maybe that applies to me too. I had better stop just taking the surface of these teachings when I come here at the class. I had better go a lot deeper inside myself so that I can see that maybe that applies to me too. Because I sure don't want to be like my mother. I don't want to be like my father. Oh, and that brother of mine. He had a criminal record over and over. He broke the law, to put it politely. He got hauled before the judge and he went to jail. I don't want to be like my brother. And I was brought up under the same horrible home he was. And I'm not quite sure why I haven't gone to jail a dozen times like my brother did. Fortunately, I haven't. Not that I haven't done a lot of things, but I just didn't get caught. But maybe I had better give a little more attention to more than this physical life that I presently have. Oh, the bumps. That's what we're talking about. And the talk said that I could switch from the jolting, dusty, raw road out in the wilderness. I could switch from that to the smooth, straight highway going upward. I can switch whenever I have the right inclination and desire to do that. So maybe I'd better give more attention to what is going to give me the motivation for switching roads, which is the fact that I'm so bumpy in my inner life and I don't understand it. I better pay attention and find out why I stay as I am. Why don't I learn the lessons? You don't learn the lessons, and this is the final summary of the whole business. People don't learn lessons because they don't want to learn the lessons. They don't want to learn the lessons because that would mean the shake-up, a conscious shake-up of every place they're going along the highway of life, a conscious shake-up of them, which would finally lead to consciousness of where they're going downhill, but they don't want that. They would rather cling to the false pleasure of bad things happening and then using that as an excuse for blasting the world instead of understanding the self and the condition that you're in. Notice, first of all, I'm going to an extremely vital point. Notice, first of all, how people cannot endure the slightest discomfort. Now, let's talk about the physical first. That's the easiest to see. If the temperature isn't exactly 72 all day and night long, they get nervous and turn on either the heater or the fan so that it's not 71 or 73. Yeah, you're to notice that for people that they get so nervous when it isn't exactly, they won't bear the little bit, they'll spend $1,000 a year more on electricity rather than live in 71 or 73 degrees. Now, that is a leading point. People will not bear the slightest inner discomfort of facing the bumps. They just pretend. Well, what do they do? What do you do? Pretend that they're not there. Pretend that there's an enemy outside of themselves that is causing them this threat and this danger, and therefore it's someone else who has to change instead of themselves. On and on, doing everything except face the fact that they are the cause of their own difficulties in life. To bear, and I'll put this word in and don't distort it, please, to bear the temporary discomfort of seeing how unpleasant you really are, which is the joke, to bear the temporary discomfort means that you'll get rid of the discomfort. And here we are back again. Who wants to get rid of it? Nobody wants to get rid of it. You'd rather crab than have silence. You'd rather roar than be quiet inside yourself, because roaring and screaming and demanding your stupid rights, that sounds as if it makes it true that you have your rights to go after, which is not. Time to remind you, everyone you know is on a course of dreadful self-destruction. You call out, sir, miss, madam, Mrs., Ms. You're on the, I always have to do that. You're on the bumpy road, and it's going to get bumpier to the point, but one day your car is going to hit such a big bump, it's going to smash into the bump instead of go over it, and you're going to go off the side of the road smashed. Your life will be smashed. People don't want to hear that. They want to kid themselves and think that because they have adopted a religion or a philosophy or any other kind of a false self-deception, that the road is going to get smoother. You are going to start today. If you didn't start yesterday, you're going to start today to bear the discomfort of knowing what an unpleasant human being you are. Now, you're never going to believe that you are unpleasant to anyone else, that you make demands of them, that you impose yourself on. You're not going to believe that you're discomfort and unpleasant to someone else because you haven't seen that you're a unpleasant person to yourself first. You won't bear it. You try to go around the bump by not noticing that it's there, but there's another bump where you go because it's all one bump in the state that you're in. The temporary bearing of seeing your actual unpleasant, see, I'm emphasizing that word, and you don't like that very much. People don't like that word. To associate unpleasantness with their nature, with the way they behave, is very unpleasant, isn't it? Because I am nice, I'm pleasant. No, you're not. You're unpleasant to yourself and to others. See, here's the thing. If you go out, or if I go out, and behave unpleasantly, grotesquely, to someone else, 99 out of 100 people aren't going to rebuke you. They're not going to say anything. Why? Because they want something from you, and they're protecting what phony reward they're getting from you by not telling you that, that wasn't the right thing. Most people will not. So you can't count on other people to help you because they're as deceitful as you are. Therefore, you're going to have to do it all alone. But isn't it nice to know that you can do it all alone, and you must do it all alone? Do what? The next incident of the foolish behavior, instead of trying to do something with it, you will let it do something for you. You said it, you did it at work, and now it's lunch hour, and you walk out of the office, and there's the big open space where the workers bring their lunches. If they don't go to the company cafe, they go outside where the bunch of benches, pretty trees, shade. And on the way, walking out there with your lunch in your hand, all the way out there, you are intensely working for your own salvation and eternal life. What are you doing? You're not thinking about your cheese sandwich. You're not thinking about that shiny apple you've got in your lunch that you're going to have after the cheese sandwich. When you're walking out there, you are knowing what is going on. You know that the vibrating echo of that little brief quarrel you had with the other person in the office. You know what I'm talking about. It happens all the time. Most of them are kept underground. You don't say anything to them, they don't say anything to you, but you're both burning. And while instead of burning, you're going to be learning as you walk out there by not allowing the experience to be concealed by you. That means that you're going to endure the pain. That means that you're going to be conscious of the pain. Look, how long does it take you to walk from your desk to the lunch area out there? 3 minutes at the most. Those 3 minutes must be used for you to do something that nobody in that whole factory of 20,000 people are going to do. But you're doing something different. They know nothing about it and don't want to know anything about it. That 3-minute walk will give you riches beyond comparison, beyond belief, beyond expression. Because what you are now doing is for 3 minutes. If you did the 3 minutes a day, you'd fly very soon. That 3 minutes, you know what you're doing? You're being who you really are. See, you're being conscious of who you really are. I made that little wrong facial expression that set her off, and she gave me a little hostile facial expression. And then I got hot because she got hot, and she got hot because I got hot, and pretty soon it's a pretty hot place in there, but they're all pretending that the temperature, internal temperature, is 72 degrees. All right. That person you had that disagreement with, that hostile experience, she's burning without learning, and she's not even going to take her lunch out. She's going to company cafeteria so to avoid facing you. But you've got your lunch and you don't want to waste your money, so you're going to go out to the lunch area. But you, on that way, are remaining with the experience, not hiding out from it. What does that mean? Oh, we can go into details for hours on what's going to go on in that 3 minutes walk, that 3 minutes learning session. With pure memory, in which you don't either admire yourself or condemn yourself, in which you don't blast her, in which you don't love to feel bad, and in which you don't worry about whether she's going to tell the boss and get you fired or not. There's no negative experience at all. You are remaining with the experience without trying to do anything with it. The experience of your hostility and mostly silent quarrel with her, that's bad enough. Of course it was wrong. We know it was wrong. That's your wrong nature that made you look at her that way, that started the whole thing off. But you're not going to pile another wrong on top of the first one. And you're not going to pile a third one onto the second and a fourth on. What you're going to do is, like a referee watching the opposing football game, instead of getting involved in the football game, you're going to be the referee who's just looking and seeing what's happening in the experience. You're going to notice, for example, that you fell asleep at the wheel. And falling asleep at the wheel, instead of enjoying being awake and driving through life, you had a yearning for some candy. Not physical candy, psychological candy. Your life is so sour, you want to sweeten it up with some sugar. Candy bar, chocolate bar. And so, for your psychological candy bar, you thought of giving her that little tiny sarcastic look. And you weren't quite sure, were you, how far you should go, right? Not too far now. Maybe if I could give that sarcastic look as I turn away, she will take it, she will see it, and I'll get back at her, but I won't get punished because maybe she's not sure. I can be sure, and I got the candy bar, but she won't be sure because I turned away, and did she give me a sarcastic look or not? And that way I will escape the wrath of her punishment back, her sarcastic look in return. Do you see why we talk about cowardice so much here? That's cowardly behavior. That's low life. Well, here we go again, the candy bar. When you're walking from your office to the lunch area, you are being conscious, you are allowing truth to explain every single thing that went on, including the explanation I just gave you. That your tricky little mind said, I am going to get the sweet candy bar of making that little tiny twist of my lips and eyes. I'm going to get sweetness, but I don't want to get punished, so I'll do it just a little bit in order that there be no retaliation for it. That is one of the things you're going to be thinking about instead of your sandwich and apple as you go out there. Talk about a whole new world to live in. This is it. And I gave it a time limit of 3 minutes from office to lunch area, but you can have all the 3-minute time sessions you want to allow learning, knowledge, to allow revelations of the previous negative state to come to you. Now, this is the timeless mind explaining the time mind. This is the innocent nature given to you by God because you had invited it. This is the innocent self examining the criminal nature, the awful person, the unpleasant person. And remember, God, reality, does not judge the time criminal. It knows about it, but it doesn't judge it because it's not a part of it. And you must not be a part of that unpleasant criminal nature that had that little scheme, that petty crime, petty criminals. You will not be that nature anymore because in the 3-minute work session, you are now pulling yourself out of yourself and with the spirit of truth, looking back and seeing how the mechanical nature, the artificial nature, the criminal nature had taken you over because you went to sleep and got yourself into trouble. But now, the real self, looking back, the light, looking at the dark, simply understands it. And when you understand it, there's freedom of it. This is how the vicious, malicious, criminal pattern, habit of inner criminal behavior is shattered. This is how you break the mechanical force that has everyone on earth practically in their power so that they can't do anything tomorrow but what they did yesterday, and on and on. They'll continue to do the same thing. On the walk out, and you're also being physically conscious too, you're going down 3 steps and then you're turning a little bit to the right to get to the shady area over there. You're being physically conscious. All the time you're in your own classroom, right? And you go out of there, and accompanying your learning will be new learnings. One of them being the fact that I just explained, and I'll go into it in another way, that the way you break yourself, the way you cut off the chains off yourself, is to not want the false pleasure of getting one up on the woman that you gave the sarcastic look, of not wanting petty pleasure from striking out at her, but instead another process comes in which you can simply call enduring the pain, enduring the shame, going along consciously with the embarrassment, called realizing what an unpleasant little impish human being you are after all. Now look, you're going to have to be 1 in a million to do this, to want to do it. Are you willing to be 1 in a million? Now look, to be 1 in a million means you can't go along with the other people, all except 1 million, whatever is million less 1. You can't go along with them anymore. No more engaging in shallow, petty lies with your neighbors, which you call being a friendly neighbor. No, it's not being a friendly neighbor, or with the person you work with. Not chattering shallow, stupid little things. Not doing that under the guise of being a normal person in the stream of human life who likes other people. And of course, you say you like other people, you're doing that so you can say they like me too, and they're both lies, because nobody of the million out there, less 1, really likes anyone. Nobody likes in fact, people can't stand each other. They can't stand themselves. And the attack upon others is always because of an attack upon themselves, first of all, because they don't want to endure the pain of seeing the simple unpleasantness. Now I want to talk a little more about that. Here you are, a determined student, because God Himself has given you the determination and the motivation to get up from your desk, and for 5 minutes, it's 5 minutes before lunch when it happens, and you fell asleep at the wheel, and that woman, she must be the most crude, unpleasant, awful human on earth. You've endured her for 5 years working in that office, all the time smiling, good morning. You feel like saying bad morning. 5 minutes before the noon whistle blows for lunch. They probably have refined it to a quiet little bell now, something like that. 5 minutes before, that's when the incident happened. And because you're so used to driving the bumpy road, you stayed on it for 5 minutes. You're a beginner in the spiritual school. It's all right. To be a beginner is the greatest thing that ever happened, because you'll never want to leave the school. So you drive the bumpy road. What does that mean? That means you let all these awful things go through you for the 5 minutes until the bell rings for lunch. The hatred, the worry that maybe she did catch the cruel look you gave her, and now she's plotting her revenge, and what will it be? Did I do something? Did I go too far? That's it. Did I go too far? Why don't you ask yourself why you did it in the first place? Because you have false love for all the calories in the sugary candy bar. Because you want to feel something sweet because your life is so sour. You've got to have something to offset the sourness. And so you really take something that is really sour and call it sweet. All right. For 5 minutes, utter flop, failure, guilt, shame, alternating with flashes of exhilaration. I struck back at a world that's been striking me, at least in a small way I got back. And besides, she's been, how's this? She's been asking for it. And I finally gave her what she's been asking for. And I urge you to watch your facial expressions, even when you don't have a mirror with you. I urge you, there'll be great revelations and teachers to you as to what's going on inside of you. Well, you're going around your house all alone, driving all alone. Watch the changes in your facial expression, track them back to see what's going on inside. All right. Flop, failure. The bell rings for lunch, and you pick up your sack. And you suddenly remember that you're supposed to use the bumps in the road. And you suddenly remember that, you understand vaguely at least, that the bumps are no fun. You used to like them because they gave you a license for hatred. I got bumped, I'm going to bump you back. I'm going to give you a glare. You suddenly realize what a petty, childish, infantile, and self-destructive human being you've been. You realize that when the bell rings. You pick up your lunch and you determine that you're going to shift your internal geography. You're not going to wander around your mental and emotional hell anymore. You've understood enough to realize, oh, thank heaven for this, to realize that when you are ready to relinquish yourself, God is ready to give you a higher self. But you realize you have to be in on your own salvation. You have to do something. And you are at the point where you realize that you don't have to try to be strong. You don't have to push away the guilt of yourself. All you have to do is to continue to endure the shame and the embarrassment until you understand even the shame and embarrassment out of existence inside yourself. This means an honest witnessing of the evil forces that had taken you over. The bumpy bumps. It means that all you know is that you fell asleep and therefore was the cause of your accident and the injuries that you got from it. The reason you got hurt and really felt bad is because you fell asleep. Now, don't go asleep on the 3-minute walk. Stay awake all the way. You can do it for 3 minutes. Later you'll be able to do it 10 minutes, 18 minutes. You'll be able to do it all day, which means you'll be alternating between practical thought about, shall I eat the apple or the sandwich first? Sandwich usually comes before the apple. You know that. So you don't even have to think about that, Vernon. But what I'm saying is that when you walk for that 3 minutes strolling lesson, you're going to simply know what is going on, the shame and the disgrace. You're going to endure it without doing a single thing about it. Because if you do something about it, if you say, well, I guess I did have a right. See, the devil has slipped one over. I did have a right to make that sarcastic look to her because she's been given to me for all these years, and it's only right. See, what have you done? You didn't learn a lesson from the first bump, and said you've added a second bump. See, you've excused yourself. You've allowed yourself justification for being bad. That's the second bump. Now you're going to feel bad over that. You see what a great illustration it is for people to be driving a highway, and every 20 yards there's a bump, and they're different sizes, the little ones and the Lollapaloozas, all along the way. What you have to do, and you do it right now as I'm talking, you determine that the next bump, the very next one, it could come in the next 30 seconds, could come when you're walking out of the room in a little bit. The very next bump is the one I'm going to look at and endure unto the end. They that endure unto the end shall be saved. Endure what? Looking at what you don't want to look at. And after a while, not overnight, but after a while, it will become easier for you to look at every bump along the road without liking it. And if you don't like it, that means you're going to unlike it, which means that the road is getting smoother because there's nothing in you that requires, for example, the justification of snarling inwardly and silently at that woman. You don't need to do it. You don't need to sin anymore. The sinner is fading out because you saw that while you lived with it, with that dark nature, when you lived with it, it just hurt terribly. And hurt is not happiness. Hurt is not liberty. Hurt is not a good place to live in. And then there, among other revelations, comes the higher one that you don't have to get hurt because you don't have to feel hurt, and you don't have to feel hurt because there's no feeler there. There's no imposter self saying, grab all you can. Yell at the other person. Get some advantage over someone else. The imposter self is not ruling and ruining you anymore. Instead, you are going to use the very next bump, wherever it is, to endure the pain. Endure it long enough and it will go away because the false cause will go away. And your compulsive need to strike out at other people and at yourself at the same time, because the two all go together, the compulsiveness of being bad will fall away of itself. Good morning.